How we doing, everybody? Doing great. Fire away.
We're talking, when you've got continuity is the best thing for any part of the team, but then you bring in a proven corner and a proven safety. How long does it take them to sort of mesh? Can that get done quickly at OTAs and camp?
Yeah, I think it starts now, obviously. Have been through this experience back in 21 when we signed, Cheeto Bay-Awuzie. Vaughn Bell had been there for a year, so he had a mesh with Vaughn and Jesse. Brought in Trey Henderson, brought in Mike Hilton all that year, and, ended up doing what we did. So it starts in the spring, getting a good feel for each other, but now that we're really, today and tomorrow, I feel like we're in a good place with that portion of what, where we're at on defense.
What are you seeing from Justin Wally in particular, and some of the instinct stuff that he's displayed?
He's done a great job so far, young guy and still learning. We had a very teachable moment this morning in front of the group. He is really taken to the position well. I think that, he's got a long way to go, but the first mark of a corner is, how you're covering, and I don't care if you have pads on or not. Either you can or you can't, and he's he's done a good job so far. He's just got to get the details of it, and but we like it, the trajectory that he's on.
Care to share the teachable moment?
No, we call that that's our that's kind of like every family has their living room, their own space. Where you air out your grievances. We also have teachable moments in front of the group, and his was a very simple one that was pointed out to him by me in front of everybody, and I think he'll remember it going forward.
So how much do you look at Zaire and Jalen right now and look at they've got a lot of ground to make up, not a lot of ground to make up? How do you kind of view their spring?
Well, I mean, they've been doing as much as they can within the rules, as in terms of their injuries and stuff. But extra meetings with Coach Betcher and just staying ahead of it. Ultimately, they play linebacker. They got to get down in there and get used to playing football again at some point, and hopefully that's sooner than later. But mentally, they're trying to stay with it as best they can.
Where do you see the next, the biggest leap for like a Latu? Still a very young player. What did you see, and where do you see that thing?
Well, you see the God-given athletic ability as soon as you watch him, as soon as the tape turns on, as soon as you see him on the field. That's anybody can see that. Now it's just going to be the recognition of how he's about to get blocked, both in the run game and the pass game. I think that's coming a little bit each day. Just his knowledge of overall, hey, I've got help here, I don't have help here. I'm going to work with Buck or Grove on this particular play on a game, whoever may be out there with him. I think all that is still ahead of him, but really like where he's at, and sky's the limit for him.
He talked, and we saw last year how many times he was almost there. Is that maybe the second years where maybe the instincts and the reaction is just a split second quicker to where he finishes?
I think so. That happens. Rookies generally they improve each year, obviously. But he was close, as you mentioned, many times. And this year we feel like he'll seal the deal. So looking forward to it.
You saw Juju Brents yesterday, and I mean, it's been a lot of stop and go with him the last couple of years.
Yeah.
He really is. He thinks he's a really good fit to play your scheme and likes the physicality. But where is he at, and where is your view of him, given a small body of work, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of talent?
Well, I think, like you said, I think it's just going to be as we progress through the spring. We're at near the end here now, and then we get into training camp. I think just consistency of work, and that's going to have to show throughout training camp, throughout the preseason games, to determine who's going to get that job. And the competition there is great, and but you got to be consistent. I don't want a lot of high ups and downs, especially at that position. I want to know what we're going to get week in and week out. It's a really, really hard job that he has. He's got to guard elite players. But you got to be consistent at it. So, he's got all the ability in the world, and just one day at a time, we'll just keep stacking days for him, and that'll be important.
Lou, how do you evaluate tackling in a training camp setting?
Well, either you make it or you don't. And when we're going to have some live situations, obviously in the preseason games, but there'll be some in limited, you know how it is in training camp. But, we'll just take what we're building from here in the spring and bring it over to training camp. And there's a number of different ways. I've always said it, coaching the DBs for a long time, tackling is about timing and angles, and that's all the non-physical part of it. So we can handle the first, 3/4 of the tackle by just getting in a good position, and then, we drill the remainder of it, both now and in preseason. So it's generally the way it's been over the years now, with less tackling during training camp. You go through the first couple preseason games, it's a little rusty. Even in the first couple games, you don't want it to be, but generally by week 3 or week 4, you got to be humming in terms of being a good tackling defense, and that's how we're evaluated.
Physicality camp is probably different when you first enter the league.
Oh yeah, yes. You're just more.
Do you wish it was
more live stuff? Well, the rules are the rules, so. I wish a lot of things, but that's just what we have to deal with, and everybody's dealing with it, so it's not like we're unique to it.
The roster's always changing, you're always looking around. When you see a Jermaine Pratt's let go, do you go to Chris and say, what do you think, or do you leave that to him? How's that work?
Well, I'm not going to comment on somebody that's not on our team, but Chris and his group of personnel guys, they do a phenomenal job. And they deal with that part of it. We have great open communication all the time. It's been tremendous, but I'll leave that for another day.
Coming in, you knew Kenny Moore was a very talented player, but what have you learned about him spending time with him this spring?
I like Kenny a lot. For first and foremost, a great person. Does so much for the organization, for the community. I think that's some of the things that get mentioned but not mentioned enough about our players, all that they do on their free time away from their families. They give so much to the community, and certainly Kenny's one of the many that we have on our team. But just in terms of being a football player, I think he brings some of the things I'm used to, with Mike Hilton. Some of their style is similar. Excuse me. Kenny's a good blitzer. He's can guard guys in the slot. He's been a take the ball away guy. So and then his instincts and just being around, and things happen fast in there in the slot. So he's been doing it for a long time, and just his overall communication, his calm demeanor will help maybe some of the young guys that may have to play. So just a lot of arrow ups with Kenny. I'm a big fan.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.